Welcome everyone to IWIN, the Illinois Work-Based Learning Innovation Network. Again, if you haven't seen it yet, we have a fancy logo here that I love to just keep shouting out. But I'm Heather Penzak. I'm a policy and program manager with Education Systems Center. And today we're really going to be talking about some reflections and innovations. It has been a year and there are things, with our presenters today that are really going to share with you about some ways that they've been innovative and the successes they've had in that. Also, the pieces they saw in those that they want to do a bit differently next year or keep implementing and just reflecting on that. So these are always conversations. These are moments, where we bring in some of these best practices and models from across the state or national examples sometimes as well. But very much would love for you all to contribute to this as you're hearing from presenters, as you're thinking of things. Share that within the chat or out loud. We'll always have time for Q&A. And so with that, we'd love to know who's here today. And you can use the chat if you like to say it out loud. And to have a little bit of fun today, the question is like, if you have to sing karaoke, like the answer can't be, I would just deny karaoke. You have to do it. It's happening. You have to. What would be your song that you would pick to sing karaoke to? And again, would love to know, name, title, organization, please in the chat, or if you want to share it out loud. Mine is Last Dance by Donna Summer. It's literally my favorite karaoke song to sing ever.
Hello, I'll share out loud. I'm Jennifer, and mine would be I'm Every Woman.
Yes, love it, love it. I can just feel singing that,
This is everyone. This is Emily Rusko. I work with Heather at EdSystems. I don't have a go-to, but I remember the last time I sang karaoke, which was several years ago now, I discovered that they had songs from NSYNC's Christmas album, which was a major milestone in my childhood. So I sang a Christmas song in the middle of summer at karaoke, but Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays was very difficult to sing, not just along with the song.
I see Jeff also has Inside Out by Eve 6 is also one of my favorites. We had our neighbors got married on Saturday, and then they had a party at their house on Sunday. And at one point they were blasting a bunch of Linkin Park songs. And I was like, yes, this is my generation of people who are now reminiscing about Linkin Park. They're all just belting out the words, and it was great. Lean on me, yes.
It's a very different vibe for a wedding party than I would expect.
Yes, I love it. I love it. All right, well, thanks everyone for having some fun here. I'm excited to see you all. And so I'm just going to do some very quick kind of announcements and updates and then move right into our presentations. But for those of you who might be new to the space of IWIN, our goals here are really just coming of folks who are involved in work-based learning. We know that there's all different stakeholders in work-based learning. And so looking at and highlighting and exploring those innovative models, and definitely had a focus this first year on IWIN. We launched back in October of 2020, which feels like a lost year in a way. But we really had a focus on virtual work-based learning. And so you're going to hear some very specific examples about that today. And engaging in conversations, and ultimately, all the effort that is done to build out work-based learning experiences, it takes a lot. And so want to make sure that we're creating things that are sustainable, that are high quality, and ultimately are really providing that broader and more equitable access, especially as we think about what work-based learning can do to build social capital for Black and Latinx students and those who tend to be underrepresented in work-based learning experiences, and not just giving the same opportunities to the same students. And it's also really building connections among you all. I think it's almost one of my favorite parts about IWIN. I always get really jazzed up for these sessions. But even just how you all share within the chat, the connections that I hear happening even after these IWINs. And so again, there are presentations here, but this is very much meant to be a conversation and collaboration. And also thinking too, as we continue to talk as a group, where there might be needs for state policy changes or support systems, and talking through those and identifying them as a group as well. And so just some very brief announcements. And if you were on our last IWIN too, I'm going to leave a little bit of time if you all have different announcements, events, shout outs, things you want to share. So if you want to start thinking of those at all, we'll get to those in just 2 minutes. If you're on our newsletter and if you've seen other information coming out from EdSystems, we have put together a statewide team-based challenge resource bank that's organized by the endorsement areas. It has ideas for inspiration to spark thinking. It also has detailed models from community. So a big thank you to all who submitted those. We still would love to have more. So if you have a team-based challenge that you would like to submit, you can send it right to me. I'll enter it into the template and kind of have you review it and then upload it to the bank. But it's all available on our iWin site. And I'm going to put the link to our presentation here in a moment too. And so there's a definition here from the Career Pathways Dictionary, is that these are those group problem-based learning projects. They're related to an individual's career area of interest, involves a problem relating to employers within that area. And a big piece here, I think a lot of spaces do that project, problem-based learning, but the key thing here is that you have mentoring from adults with expertise. So along the way, as individuals are completing this project, they're getting feedback, insights, getting pinged from an industry expert. And then ultimately they would present their outcomes. So there's just kind of a few snapshots here. On the left are what those ideas for inspiration look like. There is a template for you all to use as it's helpful to do some design, do some thinking, kind of plot this out. And then there's also, I know Cassie's on here today too, but looking at actual community models. So, taking the whole project overview, and then communities also very much have shown you how they broke down that project into days or weeks or however long that they did that team-based challenge. So again, the hope here is to spur thinking. These are not models that you would implement necessarily as is, right? It's always kind of thinking through the context and needs within your community. But very much encourage you to check that out and submit models, please. That'd be awesome. Also just putting here, talked about it a few times, but Practera, if you're still interested, and you're actually going to hear from Jeff today, who was one of our inaugural high school pilots here in Illinois about their experience with Practera. But it is a platform really for, supporting team-based challenges or career development experiences. There's links here to all the information sessions we've had on that and an interest form, but please, again, keep me posted if you are interested in that. And I don't know if I saw Nancy come in yet, or Amy too. I believe, are you also taking interest in this PD for implementing virtual WBL? I left it on here just in case. Yes, yeah, Antoine, I'm going to put the link into the deck in just a moment here. Here, I can do it now. All right, well, I believe Nancy may still be accepting if you want to participate in a cohort this summer and go through really guided PDs and sessions about implementing virtual WBL. All right, my last announcement, because I was like, I'm only going to keep it 10 minutes, I'm going to move on. This summer, kind of as a thought, talking to different folks here is, kind of putting a pause on our regular iWin sessions where we're having presentations and doing these kind of more, I guess, like formal community of practice sessions, and really having some opportunities to do some design workshops this summer. So in June, we'll do career exploration, July, team-based challenges, August, career development experiences, and really just kind of a workshop type of space where there will be a design challenge and some inspiration to draw from, but ultimately you would be in kind of smaller breakout rooms, designing together. And the goal would be to walk away with a design that you might take back to your team, or if you wanted to bring a team of people to kind of spend this time together. But I'm going to launch a quick poll. I didn't put registration links here yet because I wanted to see kind of thinking through your team, thinking about your role, thinking about folks' schedule in the summer. Would just love to know the best time of day, like your top pick for when these design workshops would be. And then once I have an understanding of that, I'm going to send out a flyer with registration links that very much encourage you to share with your team, especially thinking through those folks who are involved in the design, who are involved in the implementation of work-based learning. Bring your employer partners, your community partners, bring yourselves, right? And just really spend this time while we kind of have a moment to breathe in the summer, just getting creative and designing these different types of experiences to draw from and potentially pilot or implement, whether it's the next school year or the following, but just to kind of get those wheels turning. So we have 3 different presentations today, and I'm going to move it into our first one, which I'm very excited here to share with you all. Edith from Intrinsic Schools, and I'll let Edith introduce themselves. And Edith, I will click through, but if you need me to move next, just let me know.
Hello, everyone. My name is Edith Lizardo. I'm from Intrinsic from the Belmont-Cragen area. And today I'm going to be talking about networking night at my school and my experience. So what is networking night? Networking night is an event, a program that allows professionals from different backgrounds to connect with young adults, to share their journey and experiences, and establish that long-lasting relationship for the future to lead to successful careers. So I had a unique experience having an in-person networking night my junior year, and I had a virtual networking night my senior year. My experience in person, it was just wonderful. I had a great time just talking to professionals that were just giving me experiences. My school set up drinks, tables, and signs all over the school and decorated, gave us all tags and made us feel very professional. Professionals stayed in one area where it was easy for them to walk up to and have conversations. Students had business cards and were able to dress up to just feel that professional system. And they just had the option to walk anywhere with where the curiosity will take them. Virtual was definitely something new for me. It was out of the ordinary, but it did not take away from the experience or getting connections from the professionals. We met through a Zoom platform where each professional had their own breakout room, where students were able to themselves jump from one breakout to another. It did really took away from the shyness or feeling intimidated because we were in one group. It really did help us connect from different professions and leave that lasting image for the future.
Wonderful. Thank you, Edith. And Edith is our EdSystems intern this year. So they've been with us their senior year of high school and will be with us through July, right? And I don't know if did you want to tell them where you're headed to next year, Edith?
And next year, I'll be heading to George Washington University in DC to major in political science.
Would love then too, if you all have any questions or anything you'd like to hear from Edith. It was really nice for them to share that they'd done the same event in person. I actually had been at that networking event, I don't know, it was last year or 2 years ago. I might have like seen you, Edith, but they really do put on a great event in Intrinsic High School of just really making it feel like an event, right? With the food was like delicious. It was wonderful. Cassie would like to know, Edith, how you prepared for a networking night.
Usually my school gives us a little document with questions that we can prepare. As well, it gives us a little chance to get familiar, and we actually had a professional training, how to shake a hand of a professional when it was in person, how to walk respectfully to a professional and ask questions and what questions not to ask. As well, they give us a document where we can actually write the professionals we talk to and be able to connect with them later on.
Wonderful. Thank you, Edith. Any other questions for Edith? I see Erin out here too. Hi, Erin, back from my Urban Alliance days. We used to work together.
That's right. Hi, Heather. Nice to see you.
You too. Edith, any other pieces of advice or things you would share as folks are planning networking nights or other experiences for students?
I would definitely consider networking night because it really does leave that lasting image. And even though if the students don't reach out to professionals sometimes, they will still get that opportunity that not every student gets. and as well as just prepare us for the future that we're gonna encounter someday.
I do have a quick question, just to break the ice. I know a lot of people are chatting their questions. So Edith, was the goal for some of your colleagues or your peers to be like hired from this event, like gain employment, or really just networking to meet other professionals? And then what was on your business card too? I'm just kind of curious.
Our business cards were just provided from our schools. They had our name and email, which just made us feel a little more professional. We would just be like, hi, my name is Edith. I would like to know more about your career, and be like, end of the conversation, be like, here's my business card, let's keep in touch. Our goals, well, for me personally, was to really reach out, get my name out there, just know people for like that in the future whenever I want to reach out, or I want to get more information in that career, or if that career interests me, I can reach out. So actually, like for virtual, I actually met someone who worked in a department where they make car parts. And I reached out and I'm like, I want to learn more about your department. And we had a whole conversation. So it really is for us to feel prepared and get us out of our shell.
Thank you so much.
We have time if there's one more question for Edith. I know our piece we talked about, Edith, was, do you prefer virtual or in person? Or mix of both?
I definitely prefer in person, just because it gave me that one-on-one with that person. I was able to feel more connected and to feel like I can ask more independent questions, and like that professional will be able to just target my questions at that time rather than a big group or like 2 or 3. So definitely in person, to walk around with my drink and be like, feel professional, dress up, and just be like, I really like this event.
So we'll appreciate you, Edith, for sharing today, and we'll be here if you have any other questions for Edith. I know they're hanging on while they can, but they are still like in school too. So if we have to, we understand, but thank you for being here. All right, let me get my screen up again here for you all. And I will turn it over to our presenters from Evanston to introduce themselves and walk you through their programs that they did this year and how they've been innovative and are reflecting on those.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name's Neil Gambo, and I'm the chair of the Mayor's Employer Advisory Council. More on that in a minute. And I'm joined today with Tana Francelno. Tana is our career partnership manager, and she's the feet on the street. So she's got a lot of connections and especially with the employers in our community. So next slide, please. We're going to talk really quickly about what is MEAC, and some of you have heard it already, but it's always worth talking about. We're going to talk about the big pivot, or otherwise what we call let's build something while we're flying it. We're going to talk about work-based learning programs, the impact on virtual career panels, and we're going to mention something about school links, which some of you may have heard about, but I'll let it go until the end. And then the work that we're doing now to extend into District 65 middle school. Evanston has 2 boards of educations, one for the K through 8, then another one for the high school. So that makes it a little more interesting as we continue to develop our programs. Okay, and this is going to be pretty fast. So if, any questions, I'll certainly take care of them at the end, or I'll try not to look at the chat box because it'd probably be too much of a diversion, I guess. I don't know. Let's talk about MEAC. It's called the Mayor's Employer Advisory Council. We launched this thing in June of 2018. And it was really launched at the request of our mayor in the city of Evanston, who really wanted to bring the Evanston Township High School and local employers into a closer alignment and support local careers that don't require a 4-year college degree. Each year, anywhere from 160 to 200 young people graduate from ETHS but don't go to college, at least not right away. So that's a lot of talent sitting out there that we needed to do a better job in keeping them in Evanston. Our goal was to help 100 students per year at the end of year 3, which of course we're at that year now. And this MEAC planned to be a 3-year project. If we couldn't make a difference in 3 years, well, we failed. Well, guess what? We didn't fail. How have we done? In 2020, 2021, we right now have 22 paid summer internship programs. You'll hear more about that in a minute. We had 750 attendees at career panels and career options nights. So that's a lot of kids, a lot of people, including parents, that have heard a lot about career opportunities that don't require college. Next slide. So we have 5 stakeholder groups in MEAC. MEAC, first of all, is all voluntary, except for TANA. It is all voluntary. And the reason it's voluntary is, number one, Evanston already has enough not-for-profits. So we decided that we would not do that, and which gives us a lot more freedom in dealing with all the issues around the city. So the 5 stakeholder groups are employers, Oakton College, Community College, the high school, the city of Evanston, because they have a lot of programs for the young people that are out of school, and the not-for-profits workforce development organizations. So we got all of these people at the table at one time. So the MEAC roster, we've got 146 people. Sounds like a lot, which it is, but we got a 14-member planning team that covers all the stakeholder groups, 6 educational institutions, including Oakton, 50 employers representing all 7 career pathways. And there's 72 people with those employers, because some employers have more than one person. City and county state government, because there's funding activities there. Not-for-profit workforce development organizations. I couldn't believe there's 13 of them in Evanston, and there's probably more that we haven't picked up yet. And we have some non-affiliated friends who are expert in certain fields and come in and help us with career opportunities that are not requiring college. Next slide. So the big pivot, we had to do something on it, because on March 12th of last year, and ETHS and a number of businesses were shut down. So we needed to do something about going virtual. And let's talk about the work-based learning programs. And we've got 3 programs that are hot and heavy. The iKit Summer Internship Program, and Tana's going to tell you about that in a minute, along with the Evanston Work Ethic Program and the Mayor's Summer Youth Employment Program. Next slide. So on the big pivot, when this whole thing crashed down around our ears, several of us from the city, Youth Job Center, the WEEP program, and the high school sat around a table. We actually did that. This was just before masks were totally required, and said, we got there, all these kids are going to graduate on class of 2020, and they have nothing. They have nothing. And it turned out, after talking about it, that the city, the Evanston Community Foundation, and the Youth Job Center had some funding available for young people to get into either internships or something like that. So we rounded up funding to put 15 career opportunities in the form of summer internships and make them available to the class of 2020 graduates. We learned a lot, because we launched this program in the space of 4 weeks. And that when you do that, you do some stuff really well, and you do some stuff that you learn. And we've learned now, because we're doing it again this year on a larger scale. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn this over to Tana, because she is the feet on the street. She knows how to do it. There's a lot of detail on these next 2 charts, and we're happy to talk about them at a later time. But anyway, Tana, you're up.
Great. Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Heather, for having us. I love IWIN and this work. I am Tana Francelno, the Career Partnership Manager here in Evanston. I am kind of the bridge between ETHS, the Youth Job Center, and the city of Evanston, as well as the local employer liaison. I'm the lady that really works with the employers to create capacity for opportunities. And iKit, as Neil explained, we launched last summer. Really looking at what employers were still essentially working during the pandemic, because so much had shut down, and how could we still create some opportunity for kids coming out of high school in class of 2020. This year, fast forward, we did some wrap up meetings around it, and really wanted to figure out how can we make it more impactful and better. for this graduating class. Because again, we're still in the pandemic. Things are shifting with employers where things are opening up a little bit more. We have so much employer excitement and engagement with this. It was really easy for us to create capacity and space for these graduating seniors for this year. So this program, just as a quick overview, is 12 weeks. It starts June 14th this summer, which is a little bit, probably around the same time we did last year. We are rating the pay a lot higher than last year. So we increased the pay to $15 an hour. And the interns work about 20 to 30 hours per week with job readiness or career training included in that for 2 weeks where they spend time with Youth Job Center, just going over work ethic, how to, who to talk to in your employer, if you have a question, things like that, just being ready. The employers have the opportunity to actually decide their schedule for the interns. We do not dictate that. Because every business model is different. Some people start their businesses at 7 a.m. Some people have mid shifts at 3. So we let them, I just ask that it's not, till midnight and things like that, which is still, because they're still young people and we want to make sure that they're not thrown into adult world too fast, but we do ask for that. So, and then they also have wraparound services. So throughout their internship, they are supported if they need transportation. We also help them with work gear, if they need any kind of work uniform, any of those things, that's a part of the program. We make sure they have those things available to them. Next slide. Then the other partner we have, which is really unique, is Evanston. It's an Evanston program that's for juniors to seniors. They do 6 weeks of internships instead of 12 weeks. It's for them between their junior and senior year. So it's the summer before they become seniors. It's super focused on career and career interest. They pay $10 an hour for this shorter internship experience. And it really is a hands-on opportunity for students to, one, know what they want to kind of tip their toe in. They might decide, I want to do healthcare. And so there is an opportunity for them to do that in a 6-week program, and may decide after that 6 weeks, I don't think I want to do healthcare anymore, because they had that early introduction, their junior to senior year, transitioning them into young adults. And so WE is really, really great at identifying career interest. I will say they spend a lot of time through identifying that with the young people they work with. They also offer a career training for their young people, and that's offered during the school year. So from January to June, all throughout the school year, they're doing their career training in their small cohort of students. And then they offer, of course, wraparound services, weekly support. They have workshops regularly. We love WE's program as well, because it really is the baby step to the 12-week program. And so if we can see some students matriculate through that, that would be awesome. So we're really excited about WE. Next slide. And so Neil, you want to talk a little about the career training and how we really changed our support to our employers this year really was amped up versus last year. So we'll talk about that.
Okay, just two other real quickies. The students that on the IKIT program had to apply.
Yeah,
and our employers gave us job descriptions, and we had 39 of them, 39
yes.
opportunities. And the job descriptions were something the kids could look at, and then they told us what the top 3 of their interests. So it was pretty comprehensive. So one of the things we learned last year is employers are not that ready, or they need a lot of help understanding about the program and how you deal with young people that are coming into the workforce with either little or no work experience. So we set up 3 training sessions. They're 30 minutes long for the first 2 and then 45 for the last one. The first one was just making sure everybody understood what the program was. And we actually required the employer to be either at the session or look at it, because we did record them. So we talked about our goals, which are the number one, having young people with career opportunity information that lead to a good life after high school. The structure, which Tana just showed you, a basic timeline. We're business folks, so we put a timeline together. And then an intern job readiness checklist we could give to the employer. That's next slide, please. This is the checklist. This is really what we wanted the employers to know that the young people had as far as preparation before they come into the internship. First of all, the intern had to tell us that they're not planning to go to college immediately after graduation. which was fine. Identify their career pathway interest, which is what we did when they selected the 3 companies they wanted to talk to, and then attend job readiness training. And you can see the checklist as all the little things that an employer would like to know about a student, or rather an intern. And that checklist is available if anybody wants to see it. So after that, session 2, which is the next slide, employer preparation. What are the expectations of an intern? I'm misspelling there, and the employer. The interns have the expectation they're going to learn a lot about work practices. They're going to learn about something about a career they're interested in, and they're going to hopefully be ready to enter the workforce after that internship. The employer, their expectation is they're going to get a chance to see some young people that they might be able to hire. Now, we didn't tell the employer they had to hire them after the internship. We said, you have the opportunity to hire a good person. And we didn't know at the time, but the workforce issue around our town is pretty tight right now. So I think that's one of the reasons why we had 14 employers in this program, and that's why they jumped on this thing. The host employer gave us pre-employment requirements for the intern. And not only did they get a job description, but we gave the employers a list of things they had to talk about, because every employer is different. Do you need vaccinations? Do you need a background check? Do you need a driver's license? That whole range of things. Because last year we found out that was a bit of an last minute panic when the employer said they had to do things. So we gave them the intern that time to fulfill those pre-employment requirements, because they're being actually put assigned employers this week, and then they'll start their program in two weeks, or June 14th. So they got some time to work on those requirements. And then we showed the host employer how to do an offer letter. We are really trying to do some professionalism here, and an offer letter is one of them. So we gave them a template for that activity. Third, next slide, please. The last session, and these were about 2 weeks apart, is onboarding your intern. Now, why is that important? Again, the young persons are probably not familiar with work activities. What does a solid onboarding process look like for your intern? We required them to give us a write-up, a one-page write-up of how they're going to onboard their student. So at least we know they had a thought process. Now, some of the big employers, that was a no-brainer. Some of the smaller ones, that was pretty fun. The final one, which is done by Shelley Gates, who is our CTE, director of CTE at ETHS, were tips for their employers on communicating with young people without much work experience. These young people are going to come in, they're not 10 years of experience. They're going to need a little bit of coaching, and things like, they're tied to their cell phone. So how do you manage that? Make sure they know that being on time is 5 minutes early, that kind of stuff. So it really went over well. And again, all 3 of those sessions were videoed so that people could see them at a later date. And all of our employers did. Next slide, please. Mayor Summer Youth Program. This is something that's been going on in Evanston since 2013. And it's open to all Evanston young people 14 years old or older. 40 local employers, including the city of Evanston, set up a table in the school gym, which they did this year, not last year, and offer part-time or full-time employment during the summer. And 300 to 400 young people are employed through this process every summer. And a number of the employers there are MEAC employers. All the jobs are on site, and you may wonder, who the heck's going to hire a 14-year-old? Well, the city of Evanston will, because they can use them for camp counselors, not counselors, but camp keep an order, cleaning up the parks, all those kinds of things. So it's a big project, but a lot of kids get their a resume builder because they get a chance to do this every summer. Next slide. Okay, the virtual career panels. This was another one that we used to do in person at the high school. And of course, when we shut that thing down, we had to get something going on the virtual side. The school was very, very cooperative in terms of getting this thing rolling. These panels are focused on the 7 career pathways that are recognized by the state. They were produced by MEAC. We rounded up the employers, we rounded up the information to help the high school do it. And then the high school recorded every one of these career panels and it's on their website. And if anybody's interested in where to find those, I think Tana can probably put something in the chat box. The format for each panel was 4 local employers, and we asked them to tell it. They were 1 hour long, and not the employers. That is the whole panel is 1 hour, 10 minutes per employer, and they get to tell their personal story. They get to talk about how they got where they are. And most of these presenters did not have a college degree, but did have significant post-secondary training. Present information on careers in their organization that do not require a college degree right away. And importantly, discuss employee benefits. You know, you forget to tell these kids about this sort of stuff, but a lot of these employers have tuition reimbursement. Now, maybe not 100%, but when you think about post-secondary training, this is very important. And some of our employers will take you all the way through your bachelor's degree. Oakland Community College was the 5th player. We actually had the department chair of each section that was supporting the subject career pathway. They came on to talk about the course offerings, talk about what their students do, how successful they are after they finish their post-secondary training, and the fact that you don't have to get an associate's degree, you can get certificates. Talked about how to apply, and then talked about the dual credit courses at the high school. We know from the registrations that the school requires that over 500 attendees hit these career panels. We don't know how many have viewed them later, but that's what they did. Next thing, next slide. Okay, this was the big pivot. We did a career options night. You know, we normally do this in person where we invite employers and training organizations into the high school on an evening so that they can present, the students and parents can come and see these individual companies and organizations. Of course, we couldn't do it this past year. So what we did it virtually. We had 16 employers and training organizations come to the event. The first hour was 4 employers doing kind of what we do with the career panels, but did it on YouTube so parents can see it, so everybody else can see it. And we know that there were over 250 views, and that we're pretty sure, I think the last time I heard anecdotally it was over 300. And these are people that looked at these things after the meeting. After that, then that's critical. The second hour was the 16 breakout rooms with the individual employers and organizations, and you know, where parents and students can wander in and out. That didn't go as well as we'd hoped, but we did get some activity. And this is where they can ask questions. They can talk directly to the employers that were there. Next slide. This is a very important development for us, for MEAC. District 65, which is the K through 8 guys, the middle school career exploration for 21-22. There has been a big administration change at that District 65, the K through 8. A new superintendent, a new assistant superintendent have come in. They are very, very dedicated to career awareness information especially for the middle school. And they've done it. It's been successful. They're bringing it now to the school. There is a team that has been put together that consists of people from the District 202, which is the high school, 65, the K through 8, and MEAC, and a couple of not-for-profits, that is dedicated to bringing career information down to the middle school from the high school. Really what we're trying to do is improve the student readiness for transition from 8th grade to 9th grade. So we're doing a lot of stuff, a lot of things. And then again, I'll say this, it's just starting. Hopefully a lot of this is going to be implemented in September. And believe me, the administrators they're into it. They're going to connect the District 65 students with the ETHS Career Pathway Guide to promote career pathway course selection, because these kids in 8th grade, they have to select what they want to do in 9th grade. Well, if you do it blindly, that's not terribly helpful. So we're really going to expose that in much greater detail. Early introduction to the ETHS facilities, including the CTE space. Evanston High School has an incredible CTE space, and we're going to try and get that much more connected and bring employers in at the same time that are connected to those CT classes or spaces. We're going to try and develop a career readiness sessions focused on why students are in school and what the real world expects. Bringing the current ETHS 9th grade career awareness program into the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The assistant superintendent wants to bring the information that's done at the high school and the 9th grade and bring that into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade so that there's when that transition to 9th grade is much smoother. They're going to connect the ETHS CTE programs to middle school curriculums, bringing MEAC employers into the middle school classroom to support those career awareness events. And one interesting item that looks like it's going to happen is doing business-related projects sponsored by MEAC members that support joint participation of ETHS and the District 65 students. I know that's a lot. It's a big deal, and there are people working really hard to get this to happen over the summer, and MEAC is just really happy to be part of this thing because we are the connector to the employers. Next slide. I promise there's only one slide after this one. School links. This is a comprehensive college and career readiness dashboard that some of you may have heard about. ETHS adopted this platform in replacing Naviance and Inspire Your Future and getting it onto one dashboard. This one has a significant employer information section with links to the local employers featuring career information, job openings, opportunities for job shadowing, career, the career information for practitioners. It's a big deal. The really important part is this is a common platform for District 65 middle schools and ETHS. We have made District 65 aware of school links, and they are in the process now of putting together what they need to do to become part of school links. So now you're looking at a continual dashboard for students starting in the 6th grade. And that's a very important aspect. School Links is a newer program out there. They really are very cooperative, and they can help you redesign it in the way they think you need it. Last slide. What's next? Well, career panels for next year are going to be virtual and in person. We like the virtual part of it because parents and everybody else can see them. Mini panels and field trips, we're going to try and do a little bit more of that. Again, virtual and in person. We will have an in-person career options night on March 2022. We are increasing the MEAC employer membership, especially augmenting career pathways that are light on participants like the arts. Expanding iKit, we'd like to get more kids into that and find more funding to do it and support that middle school career information initiative. I realize that's a lot of information. We are very, very busy right now, and it seems to be really making a big difference here, especially with the school and with the young people who we're in contact with. So Heather, I think that'll wrap it up for me. And thank you very much for letting us do this.
No, wonderful. Thank you both. It's really wonderful to see just like, how this all plays out, especially that employer training. It's such a big piece of this, right? Like there's skills that they bring and insight that they bring, but they might not have worked with young people in a while. So how do you support them to bring their skills and expertise? Also with a, little extra dose of working with young people in there from you all and your expertise. But we'd love to open it up to the group here, and I'll stop sharing for a moment. But if there's questions, and feel free to put them in the chat, say them out loud for our presenters here.
I was curious I had a couple questions, but one of them was, you mentioned the salary, I think $15 and the $10, but there was no cost to the employer was the first bullet. So who's actually paying that salary?
Those are being paid by funds coming through the Youth Job Center and from the city of Evanston. These are funds like WIOA funds and a few other things that are out there. The Youth Job Center has contracts with all these employers, so the insurance is covered by, again, the Youth Job Center's funding. So there is, now I will tell you this, two of our employers said, hey, we'll pay. So some of the positions are actually paid by them rather than hoping that they'd be paid by, the funds we have from Youth Job Center in the city. So 7 of those 22 positions we have, they're paid by the employer.
In 2 different industry sectors as well. So we have manufacturing and actually healthcare budgeted. So it was kind of like a conversation first, like, if we could do this, if you would be willing to fund. They put it in their budget, so that was pretty cool. which gave us a little bit of relief. We could still have 5 positions with them, but they just we didn't have to find the funding for all of it. So that was kind of nice.
And then we did have more applications than we have positions. So as soon as we allocate everybody, we're going to let the employers know, hey, these are young people that are ready to be hired.
Oh, my second, thank you. That was great. There actually used to be an internship program for teachers. I'm probably older than most people on this, that it was free to the employer. So employers would hire us as teachers so we could actually get some hands-on in some of the areas that we teach, and we got paid. So it sounds kind of similar to that, which was many decades ago. But my second question, now, if I noticed correctly, this was one of the requirements was also that you were not going on to to college. Is that correct? So do you have something as well for like community college bound or four-year bound?
Yeah.
Or right now just focusing on those who haven't quite determined or are looking right at going straight into that career?
I can say something to that real quick, Neil, and then you can add. So my theory is that all kids going to college, not going to college, going to Oakton Community College. Oakton's a big piece of our work. And this past year, we really brought them along to show the students, hey, listen, you can go to Oakton after high school, get a certification and work in one of our internship opportunities. So it's not exactly just no kids not going to college at all, but we don't want them going to a 4-year university and using this platform of iKid as a summer job, right? We can get them summer jobs if they want a summer job, but we really want to build longevity with the employer and have young people that are local, maybe going to Oakton to take some courses or credential earnings and still stay at that employer. Hope, that's the hope, right? That's what we hope would happen. And so it's identifying kids that don't necessarily have a 4-year university plan versus kids that are not exactly going to college, because they may go later or they may go differently. They may do their path different through the employer might pay. You know, there's different ways to do it, but we do try to do it that way. We really want to just make sure they're not leaving us to go to Bradley or U of I, because that's really a summer job then, and it takes away the purpose of the work. So.
And I might add too that one of the things that we didn't expect was that the connections between the employer and Oakton. Because if you can get the employer and Oakton together, they can offer the right certifications to augment what the employer wants. So that actually has started. Those conversations started. It's kind of fun to watch that happen.
Mm-hmm.
I see a question in the chat box from Frank Holthouse, which is what is EFE involved? I'm not sure what that is.
So you employment for education network. So kind of like regionally, is this an Evanston only initiative, or are the other schools that feed into Oakton somewhat involved, or the leadership from the EFE involved in the process?
I don't think that EFE, oh, that's Amy Romito. Yes, EFE is definitely involved, right, Amy?
Yes, thanks, Frank.
Yes, we are involved in that, and I, for sure.
So there's another question in the chat. How do we address internet connectivity concerns for scholars and families? Our district gave a lot of our families hotspots during this pandemic-y learning remote situation. A lot of families had that as an option for them if they did not have internet, because we all know that their internet, I think with this pandemic, it showed that there's some inequities with who has access to those services. And so Evanston Township did have hotspots that they gave their students during the pandemic and remote learning session. They're now in hybrid and school's almost over. They'll be back in session in person next school year. So in the fall. Did I answer your question? Oh, that was our thing.
Wonderful. Thank you both. I think we have time for one more question before we move on to Jeff's presentation here. If there are any. I'm excited to hear how the middle school expansion goes. I think more and more as communities are building out more robust work-based learning, even within the high school space, they're realizing like we actually need to get these thoughts moving before they even get to high school and now like make a decision, right? And the intentionality behind students, every student's going to need some sort of post-secondary training at this point to make a living wage, be in a career that's sustainable, but to find those students who like don't already have this 4-year identified, but have the skills, can use the work experience, right? Get connected to that path, so that employer is so invaluable.
Well, I want to make sure everybody knows this, this District 65 program with the middle school is a work in process. There is no silver bullet here. And what we're really trying to do it is every time we get together, we got new ideas, new enthusiasm, and thank God the school administration on both districts are fully aboard.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both again. If you all have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'm sure they'll respond to you. Or I also, you know, people who come on to present always tend to always be willing to collaborate later. So, you know.
We're happy to chat with anybody about all this stuff.
Definitely.
Get my screen up here again, and we have North Chicago Community High School presenting here today.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present here today. I appreciate this opportunity. You go to the next slide, Heather. All right. So that's my name, Jeff Hohenstein. I'm currently the lead teacher for the work study program. You see my email there. I'll also have it on the screen at the end. You ever notice how people pick profile pictures that make them look younger? So there was my attempt at that. That's me a few years ago, before we all aged due to the pandemic. We all look a little older now than I think we did after staring at screens and trying to do remote learning and all that stuff. So there's a younger profile picture of me. So North Chicago Unit District, those of you unfamiliar, is in Lake County, Illinois. So not in the city, but actually in the north suburbs. And it is a unit district that services pre-K all the way through high school. You see the demographic breakdowns there of the students. Next slide. So at North Chicago High School, we decided in 2019-20 to do some work with a work study pilot program. And we had done career pathways for several years and had industry opportunities for students to really explore career options, a lot like some of the amazing work going on at Evanston right now. But we wanted to kind of link students to careers and provide some skills that would make them very employable. So we started the work study program in 2019-20, and you see the three at the top there are GF Machining Solutions, Green Bay Early Childhood, which is one of the schools in the district, and then NIPRO, which is a medical manufacturing company in Gurnee. And then you see some of the supporting institutions below there that were part of our work study pilot last school year. Next slide. So our pilot was a small program for on-track seniors. We ended up with 11 students in it. It began in January of last year in the second semester. We started with some training days led by Employee Connections out of Waukegan. And then some companies participated also as needed. And then we actually started sending kids to the work site on January 21st of last year. And the plan was for them to go to the work site 56 days, and that was Monday through Thursday when the school is in session. And then on Fridays, they would be doing some reflection and job readiness training with me during those Fridays. And we were transporting students by American Taxi. That was going extremely well until we hit the middle of March, as our lives were upended. You go to the next slide. So this is just a little bit of from the students on what they learned during their time January to mid-March. So this one's from Bruce, working at GF Machining Solutions, shows me that life is diverse. This one is from Obsidian, from NIPRO, talking this program means the chance to open my eyes to a new world of work. And then the next one from Eddie, who said, I genuinely enjoy working with the children in my class. I enjoy playing, reading, and counting with them and seeing their growth and development. So the kids were really benefiting from these experiences, these career exposures that were allowing them to see what working in a specific industry might look like. Then we had to get a little creative when the pandemic hit, and we were able to kind of continue our program through some remote learning opportunities for students and some trainings that we were able to implement for the final few months of school. So that led us into this school year. And again, we had to be a little creative in what we were doing. During the spring of last year, we applied for the WIOA grant which is once again, in-school youth are now eligible for it. So for several years, according to my understanding, WIOA grants were only for out-of-school youth. But then last year they opened it back up to in-school youth, which allowed us to apply. We did receive the grant as a subrecipient, one of the subrecipients in Lake County. And this was the plan that we laid out pre-pandemic. The students would take a first semester class in which they would be doing different job readiness training, starting in the first quarter of school, financial literacy, leadership training, some individual career assessment, and just basically some onboarding activities to get them to know what the world of work would be like. Things like resume building, mock interviews, and that sort of thing. In the second quarter of last year, we were planning second quarter of this year, more leadership training and entrepreneurial training, some occupational training, which including Microsoft endorsements, some work-based learning. We were hoping for in-person, job shadows and in-person tours, and that all turned virtual. And then in the second semester, we were going to, again, send the students like we did in our pilot program to the job site. So that was the, that was the plan that we were going with until we had to kind of completely pivot. All right, next slide. All right, so we still went forward with our first quarter and second quarter plans as planned. We did it obviously remotely because school was not in session. And second semester, then we still wanted to provide a job experience for our students. And so we were able to develop a plan for virtual internships. And students were divided into small teams of 2 to 3 students and paired with a company. Heather's put this PowerPoint in the chat, so you can click on the hyperlinks that I added here if you want to explore some of these things in more detail. And then we were given all the teams the same project brief, and I'll explain that in a second. And then we partnered with Practera. We were given access to their platform, their web-based platform that was used to host virtual internships. And from my understanding, we were one of the first high schools to actually do this. This had been done more at the college level. And so we were one of the first high schools to partner with Practera for a virtual internship. So during that virtual internship, students were meeting with companies once per week. They were working on their projects in Practera. I got some screen captures to show you in a little bit. And again, we were able to use the funds that we had secured through the WIOA grant to pay for some of the module completions within Practera. So kind of making it a paid virtual internship that the students enjoyed that aspect of it also. Next slide. So we ended up with 4 companies that were willing to partner with us on this model. We did have more at the table that were kind of interested in being part of in-person hosting, or at least company tours and possibly some one-day job shadows. But these were the 4 companies that stepped up and stuck with us through our virtual internship. North Chicago Community Partners, which is a not-for-profit right here in North Chicago that supports the school district and families in the school district. Hydroforce, which is in Lincolnshire, which is a manufacturing center that specializes in hydraulics. AbbVie Foundation, which is the philanthropic arm of AbbVie, and they medical medicine and medical devices. And then Northwestern Medicine was the 4th company that we got to partner with us on these. Next slide. So we needed a project brief that could go across those unique career sectors. So we also wanted something that would be engaging to high schoolers. So these were all seniors ready to graduate, and we thought, what better to engage students in learning than to utilize their passion for social media. So they were asked to become like contract employers that were going to do an audit of the company's current use of social media, and then to help identify, look at some competition and see how they use social media, and then to identify some strategies for the companies that could help them move forward in that. And high school students thought this was a pretty cool project to be involved with, something that they definitely could relate to and had some knowledge on. Next slide. So now we get into some of the screen captures from Practera. This one shows how the milestones were set up in there. So we had the getting started, which was 1 week. We had the project planning, which was 2 weeks. Research, which was 3 weeks. Draft strategy, which was 5 to 6 weeks, and then final strategy and presentation. And we took this right up until their graduation week. So they graduated on the 15th, and we were still getting some projects, presentations on the 14th of May. So we had this going right up until the end. And the thought would be that they would be presenting to people from the companies. And that did take place. All the teams presented to just a small group of people from each company, and presentations virtually, obviously, just kind of presenting what they found during the project. Next slide. So this is kind of what Practera looks like on the inside as students open it up. So they had different activities within the milestones that they would complete. It was individually paced for the most part. Students could kind of go at their own pace, with the caveat that sometimes they would need feedback from the mentors. So the mentors would be alerted through email that a new posting had taken place, and then the students, the mentor could review whatever Google Doc or other document that they put on in the Practera app, and then they could provide feedback. And sometimes that would kind of be a back and forth between the mentor and the students. Next slide. So what was nice from an administrator's standpoint, my standpoint, I could track progress of teams and kind of see how they were doing, see which teams were falling behind, and try to motivate them to get caught up. There was a lot of procrastination with this project, but we had seniors second semester in remote learning. Some of their minds were not quite on work-based learning, but we did get to the point where all the teams, almost all the 2 students fell a little bit short of completing milestones, but all the teams were part of the presentation, and that was the most important thing for me, that they got to do a professional presentation in front of individuals from these companies. Next slide. This is just, again, kind of an inside look of what the back and forth looked like. Again, what was cool about the communication was it did go right to the vendor's email. First, they were a little worried about having another, web-based app to log into every day, but they were alerted in their email. They could click on that, and as long as they hadn't logged out of their account, from what I understand, then they were linked right to Practera, and then they could chat right in the app. So the employers did, say it was pretty user-friendly on their end. It was, the learning curve for them was minimal. And interestingly, that was what some of the companies had worried about, that it would kind of be a big ask for someone at the company to kind of keep up with the project and back and forth communication. So it turned out to be very user-friendly for both student and the mentors. Next slide. So what did we learn from all this? So we learned that doing a virtual internship with second semester seniors in remote learning is incredibly hard. So let's hope that we are never put back in that unique situation once again. I definitely saw some things that would be very good moving forward with the projects, and I'll get into that a little bit here. The stipends that were available through the WeWO grant were really good for motivating students, but it was almost like it didn't help them from procrastinating. It just kind of motivated that at the end to finish. So I hope to have a little bit more steady progress from the students and kind of keeping up with things as professionals, and that didn't necessarily happen. But I am pretty confident that when I have students in front of me and we have daily class and personal check-ins, that motivation is going to be a lot easier to maintain. Just having students on their own kind of doing this and checking in with me a couple times a week became very hard. I can't say enough about Practera, about how easy they were to work with. Like I said, we were one of the first high schools that I know of to set this up. So they were very eager to work with me to set up a project that made sense for our virtual internship and also made sense for high school students. They actually took an existing project related to social media and helped me adapt it for high school students and specifically my population. So if you get a chance to be part of their pilot programs or opportunities that Practera is putting out there, I highly recommend taking part of it. It's really worthwhile and they're very easy to work with. We also concluded that maybe the best form of this is to blend the 2 years together. I know we're all sick of the word hybrid, but to create a hybrid model of work study where students would be going to the company maybe 1 to 2 days per week, and then would be working on a virtual internship 3 to 4 days a week. And that's my vision for next school year. And I think that's a good plan because then they get the interaction in person with the people at the company. They get to feel more like they are part of the team and not just an independent contractor as we presented it this year. They get to feel like an employee of the company. They get that great job shadowing opportunity. But then they also have some individual work to do. And the ask is not as big for the companies because when we were doing it last year and we had students going to the companies 4 days a week pre-pandemic, that was a lot on some of the companies. A couple of the companies, the feedback I got at the end was, to have high school students at the job site 4 days a week, they had to have someone obviously supervising them, keeping them, in an activity or at least showing them something new at the company each day. So I think 4 days a week is a bit much, but that 1 to 2 day range for the in-person, 3 to 4 day a week for the virtual internship is a plan that I look forward to trying to implement next year. That is going to be our plan next year. And then, I think this goes without saying, we heard some of this in the Evanston presentation. The people at the company are extremely eager to help. They are on board with kind of providing these opportunities because they see this as the next generation of the workforce. The pandemic did kind of put some constraints on some of that, even some of the virtual stuff, because I think people were very bogged down in their day-to-day jobs and just kind of overwhelmed with trying to adjust in their own work. And so, I think in a more normal school year, I think we're going to have more clear interaction with the companies, and it's going to be much easier to kind of maintain. So next slide. So that does conclude my presentation. Again, there's my email. I'd be happy to interact with you through email or obviously answer questions now. The final hyperlink you see at the bottom there is a link to a video that I created with the students to thank the Lake County Workforce Development Board for funding our program this year and allowing us to be sub-recipients on the grant. So you can check out that video if you want to hear from the students directly. All right, any questions?
I have a question. How did you create your stipends? Talk a little bit about what were the stipend amounts look like? Were the students excited about that part of that? And then the WIOA funding, I saw that shift, and we're super interested in trying to do that in person, in school WIOA fund. Just a little bit more about that would be really helpful. Just how
Sure.
did you, yeah.
Yeah, so we had a tracking tool that had 10 different components on it that were laid out that were in direct relation to how we wrote our grant proposal. And so they were kind of like checkpoints for the students that they had to complete. And once they completed 8 out of 10 of those in a quarter, they did receive a $500 stipend. So it was a pretty substantial amount of money. The students were thrilled with it. For me, it was pretty easy to maintain. These were things like mock interviews, virtual company tours, filling out a job application, just things that would, leadership training, the Microsoft training was in there. And so we were able to offer those at the end of the first quarter and at the end of the second quarter. And then on top of that, they were able to receive additional money for doing the virtual internships.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Sure.
What was your what is this cohort size? What was your size of your student cohort?
So for the pilot, we were 11 students. Last year, we were again 11 students. And then next year, our aim is 30. So we decided to kind of keep it small and really kind of come up with a good model that works. And next year, we're going to expand it. And then the principal has a design on even growing the program more. We weren't only looking at students, we were looking at students who were just interested in building these skills. So if they wanted to go to a 4-year school, they were still eligible to come into our program. They were still very transferable skills, even for a student going directly into college, trying to teach a lot of professionalism and just, overall understanding of how the real world works.
Did any of your students get employment opportunities after they finished, or is it a little early to ask that question?
So this year with the virtual internships, nothing did pan out. Last year with our pilot program, 2 students were offered a position to start an entry-level position at Nitro. So the 2 students who were there were offered a position. Neither of them unfortunately took advantage of that. One of them went into a different industry and the other moved to Florida. So neither one of them could. The one who moved to Florida actually really wanted to take the job, but the family was moving. So that's the goal kind of moving forward, that the students would understand what the company was like, and then the company, especially for those manufacturing companies that have the entry-level positions that really only require a high school diploma, they would feed right into their workforce.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jeff here? And it definitely was a big lift, and kudos to you all for being like, all right, well, we're going to figure out how to do this, and let's pilot this new platform, this virtual, and figure it out. And I think to Jeff's point, like there were pieces of success and just pieces of learning, right?
Yeah, one question. Well, first of all, I think any senior second semester, that's a tough uphill battle, as you had mentioned.
Yeah.
My question though, if I understand correctly, all the students are doing the same research project. Have you thought about or looked into kind of something more customized where, for example, like with your Northwestern, because I know talking to our health doc teachers and that internship piece, and as they look forward, some doors that have been open closing now because of COVID, something that's kind of more catered to each industry, or and that might be biting off too much. But I was curious, kind of what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think next year when we do have the hybrid model, that will be the plan. I will let the companies, I think we'd still kind of keep it in the same general kind of deliverables, like we'd still have the same deliverables for the students, but each industry would be able to customize it to make it relatable to that industry. But just this year with the pandemic, it was too much. So we literally had one project brief for all 4 companies. But yeah, that is the plan. And that's how Practera, they actually shared a whole, folder of different projects that they had, and they were cross industry. So they had pretty much every industry that I could imagine they had projects for. And again, they will help customize those and work with you and the company in order to make that happen. Any other questions? Again, you have my email in the presentation. If you ever want to connect, that'd be great. But thanks for the opportunity, Heather.
Yeah, no, thank you for being here. Thank you to all of our presenters. I still see we have Edith on the line too. So big shout out to you all for the work that you've done and the work that you continue to do, even as we move into this next school year, right? Where even being fully, in person comes with new adventures, new challenges, right? It doesn't all get removed just because we're all in person. So, but this was a difficult year to innovate, but also an incredibly important year to be innovative, to be trying some stuff out to really build towards next school year. But just some really quick next steps here. As always, we'll send out the recording materials from today. You all should have the link to the presentation as well. If you have a team-based challenge, like again, I'm really excited about these middle school ones, Evanston team here, kind of see where that might fit into there, because I think that could really support those relationships too between middle and high school. But if you have anything bubbling up as a team-based challenge, you'd love to talk about it or submit it, would love to see those. I will also put together that flyer with registration links for workshops in the summer. Again, along the continuum, feel free to attend all of them, one of them, bring a group, share it with your networks. The more the merrier. It really will be just kind of workshopping in those breakout rooms. And I'll be popping out and have other facilitators to help with that as well. And then in late September, we'll kind of begin this regular cadence of sessions and sharing from one another. And if you all are, have been throughout here, you're hearing presentations today, and you're like, I would love to present on this thing, just please let me know. I would love to have you on and to share what you've been up to. And just thank you all so much for all that you do. Wishing you a wonderful rest of the school year. And I'm sure you've got summer school maybe on the brain too, or summer plans, internships, work, and Just thank you for all that you do. You all are incredible and appreciate you. And thank you for joining today.